Okay, in this video we're going to put Codex and Claude Code head to head. I'm going to set up identical work environments and give them the same prompts to build an app, and we're going to see which one is better at planning and building an app for us. So as you can see here, I've set up the two environments. On the left hand side we've got the Codex test project directory, and on the right hand side we've got the Claude Code test project directory. Identical directories. All I've done is created a new Next.js skeleton project here for each, and then as you can see on the right we've got the Claude Code extension set up, and if we flick over here on the left hand side we've got the Codex session set up. So what we'll do is we'll give each of them the same prompt and we'll see which one can build us the best app. So I've got an app in mind that I'm going to ask both projects to build. So we'll talk a little bit about what the project is, and I'll show you the prompt that we've created to provide to both Codex and Claude Code, and we'll see which one can do a better job. Okay, so we're on my website now. This is snapperai.io/PRD-templates. You can see that here in the menu. We can see here on this page you can create PRDs in 15 minutes with these AI prompt templates. So you can download prompt templates here, copy paste into ChatGPT and Claude, and it will build a PRD. This has been a popular download. A lot of people have downloaded this, so my thought here was, rather than having to download this and use the prompt templates and do that copy pasting, it'd be a lot easier if I actually had an app that already had those prompts built into it. So all you needed to do was fill out some information about what project you're working on, and then the app would be able to then build the PRDs without you having to copy paste the prompts and go through those steps. We can streamline it here by building an app. So that's the project we're going to work on today. This is what we're going to ask both Codex and Claude Code to build. So we'll see if they can build an app for us that allows us to automate a lot of this process with these prompt templates built in, so that you can much more easily and quickly build some PRD templates. Okay, so now we're over on Claude. So what I've done is I've also had some conversations with both ChatGPT and Claude to get to this point where we've got the starting prompt that we're going to provide for both Codex and Claude Code for the planning mode of this app build. So what we want to do first is ask them both to plan how they're going to build this app. Once they've provided their plan, we can review and see what the differences are in how they've gone about the planning phase of the project. Then we can switch to implementation mode and see Codex and Claude Code both build the app. So this is that first initial prompt of planning mode, and we can see here it's very detailed, given we've been back and forth with prompting to make sure that we're giving it all of the information and context they need to be able to successfully plan and build this app. So we can see here the prompt starts with, you are working inside a blank Next.js TypeScript Tailwind project. Your goal is to plan, not build yet, a small web app called PRD Generator, template wizard that turns structured user inputs into a fully formatted PRD using SnapperAI's existing PRD template system. In this phase, you will analyze requirements and design the architecture, define file structure types and component hierarchy, plan the PRD generation logic, identify edge cases and validation needs, ask clarifying questions before implementation. You will not write any code in this planning phase. So we've made it very clear that we first want it to plan everything. Instead of just jumping straight in and actually building stuff, we want to plan everything first. So we've then got this context here. So the Snapper AI PRD template system. This app replaces a popular 3-step AI workflow with a direct form to PRD generator. So that's the overall goal of this project. The old process was the ChatGPT creates the scaffold, Claude expands to a full PRD, ChatGPT reviews. The new process will be the user fills out a form, the app generates the complete PRD instantly. It will do these steps on the back end, but the front end user process will be filling out a form, and then the PRD will be generated. So we're removing a lot of those steps and making it a lot easier. We've also then provided the existing templates from that download. So I've just created a project directory called PRD Generator Shared, where I've uploaded those templates, and I've made that accessible to both Codex and Claude Code. So that's on my system. So if they want to look at the full templates that exist, they can locate the files at this directory path, and they can use that for their planning purposes. We've then got some more information about the PRD output structure. So this is what we want the PRD to look like when it's completed. And then we've got the project goal, what you're planning. We're making it very clear what we want to it to build. When the user clicks generate PRD, the app should validate, go through all those steps to create the PRD. We've got inputs to collect. So we've actually done a lot of the planning here already of what they should build. We've got the form input schema here. We've got theme and UI guidelines. We've got technical requirements, client-side constraints, TypeScript types as well. So we've got a lot of information here as this starting point for the prompts. We've got planning deliverables, user experience flow, edge cases and validation, optional phase 2 ideas. So as you can see, this is a very detailed prompt, but there are a few important distinctions that we've made. So if I scroll down the bottom here, we can see that we've said before you start, this is an MVP, focus on core functionality, clean, simple UX, solid architecture that works, don't over-engineer or add unnecessary features. We've then said ask clarifying questions. So we want it to be thorough and ask follow-up questions if it wants to know more information to help with the planning and building phase. We've also then clarified here if there are any aspects of the requirements you'd like to optimize or improve, you can do that. So this is our way of essentially saying this very detailed prompt is a guide only. So we still want Codex and Claude Code to review our plan here, but then suggest potential areas for optimization or improvement. So we don't want it to just be limited by the prompt that we've provided. So that's where we're just making it clear to say, this is a guide, this is a framework. If you want to improve on it, you can. So that's the prompt we're going to be using. So now we'll jump back over to Cursor and we'll give this prompt to both Codex and Claude Code and we'll see how they go about the planning phase. Okay, so we're back in Cursor and you can see we've got our split screen here with Claude Code on the right and Codex on the left. Let's quickly chat about the models that we're going to be using for this test. So as you can see down the bottom here, there are options where you can switch the mode and the model for Codex. What we're going to do is use GPT-5 Codex High. So this model will think longer for better answers. So it might take a bit longer and be slower when it does think about the response, but we should get a better result than if we were to use low or medium. So as a good comparison and competition against Claude Code, we're going to use high. We're then going to switch our mode. So as mentioned, the first mode that we're going to be using is planning mode. So we don't want it to actually write any code yet. So we'll be in chat or plan mode. Once we're happy with the plan that it's created, we can switch over to agent mode. So I'll click on chat or plan mode here. So we've set up Codex ready to go. On the right hand side, we've got Claude Code, and if you do /model, you'll see the settings come up, select model. So we want to click on that just to make sure that we're using the right model. And you can see here we're on the default recommended model, which is Sonnet 4.5. So that's the newest and best model for Claude. You could use Opus 4.1, which is recommended for complex tasks, but being the newest model that's been released and there's been a lot of positive feedback about Sonnet 4.5, we'll use that and see what results we come up with that. So we're set up now, we've got our two windows open and we can now prompt both and see what they come up with. So I've copied that prompt across from our Claude chat and I'm just going to paste in both windows here. We'll hit enter and we'll see how they both go about this initial prompt and the planning phase for our PRD wizard app. So we can see both are thinking, as mentioned, being the high model for Codex. It's probably going to take a bit longer for that response on the left. We can see it's already planning a lot. Claude Code hasn't started writing anything yet, it's still thinking. So firstly, interesting to see that Codex has finished its response a lot quicker than Claude Code, and we saw a lot more information of its thinking process. We could see what it was doing as it was responding, whereas Claude Code on the right hand side, we can just see that it's still thinking. We can't actually see details about what thinking process it's going through. So while Claude Code continues to work, we'll review the response from Codex. You can see here it started by outlining the file structure. It's then planning how it's going to structure the project. It's got a TypeScript plan. So we can see here it's got description, problem statement, target audience, some of these fields that we'll need for the form. It's outlining here. So it is planning how that's going to work on the back end. It's got component hierarchy that it's outlined. It's got the composed PRD plan. It's got a UI layout plan. So we can see it's thinking about how this will work on both desktop and mobile, an interaction flow as well. It's outlined edge cases and validation. Optimizations and improvements, it's saying suggest using use reducer in use PRD state for predictable updates and easier validation logic grouping. Case generated markdown in session until form changes. Provide load sample data button. Add minimal persona seed data to ensure diversity. Clarify whether SnapRail specific branding should be applied or if the gradient background is sufficient. And then it's got some open questions. So it's asking, should the MVP include a pre-filled demo project for quick testing or keep the form blank? Any specific SnapRail font or logo assets to incorporate alongside the gradient? For persona generation, is it acceptable to use a deterministic template or should we randomize per generation? Are there compliance requirements for download file names? Do we need analytics logging hooks for generating actions in MVP? So those are the questions that it's asked at the end of its planning session. We can see Claude code on the right hand side is now finished. So we can see here it's started in a similar way. It's outlined a file structure. It's then got the TypeScript interfaces, component hierarchy, so a similar process to Codex. It's then got the composed PRD implementation plan. Again, a similar response structure to Codex. It's then got the generation logic, so it's outlined key implementation plans for the actual PRD itself for each section in the PRD, so a lot more detail here. It's then got the UI component layout. It's again similar to Codex, outlined both the requirements for desktop and mobile. It's got edge cases and validation. As you can see, very detailed in terms of the edge cases. It's outlined optimizations and improvements, a simplify persona generation for the MVP. Feature priority is visual badge, not a drop down. Smart defaults for new features. Collapsible sections in form. Download includes metadata comments. Preview while you type is an optional enhancement. And then it's got questions and clarifications. So just on the areas for optimization and improvement, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to accept all of the optimization and improvement suggestions for both. So this is where we should see the unique approach for both Codex and Claude Code. If we just say, yep, let's just accept those improvements you've suggested and see how that affects the end result. And then we can see Claude Code then has some follow-up questions. It's asking about branding assets. It's again similar to Codex, asking if we should have a demo example PRD. Another analytics and tracking question similar to Codex. Error handling. It's asking about future features. So this is something that is a good thing to be thinking about. So beyond the MVP, what are some future features we could look at? We'll probably ignore that though because we just want to focus on the MVP here. Then content quality, how important is high quality generated text versus speed? That's a good question. Should we invest in sophisticated NLP for persona generation or keep templates simple? And then target audience, is it for internal teams so quality matters less, or external clients so quality is critical? So some good questions there around content quality from Claude Code. So what we'll do is we can see here it's confident about these things in the project, and now it's saying I'd like to discuss these few things. So it's then got a recommended MVP scope, and and it wants to defer to version 1.1 live preview while typing, save load PRDs. That requires a backend build, advanced NLP for content generation, AI polish integration, PDF exports. It's finished up by saying next steps. If you approve this plan, confirm branding details, decide on persona generation approach, approve recommended optimizations, answer clarification questions above, then I'll move on to implementations. Similar responses really from both Codex and Claude Code on that initial prompt. They did follow a similar structure in the response output. There's a little bit more detail on the Claude Code side, but there's not a whole lot of difference that I can see from first look in terms of the quality. They both look pretty good. Definitely can't really see a standout winner. They're just both really solid responses. Okay, so as a next step, I copy pasted both responses into Claude. So just keep in mind that I've identified which response was Codex and which one was Claude Code. So because I'm now asking Sonnet 4.5 to compare and give me feedback, there's potential for bias. So yeah, keep that in mind. But the overall assessment was pretty similar to what my initial instinct was, and that was that both are really strong, but there's just slight differences in each. As we can see from the overall assessment, it's saying that Claude Code's response was more comprehensive planning, better UX focus, excellent visual wireframes. Codex's response, it's identified cleaner architecture, more scalable file structure, and better separation of concerns. And the verdict, both are strong, but I'd lean towards Claude Code for planning depth and Codex for file structure. So those are the strength of each response. Claude Code's planning depth was a bit better. Codex's file structure and architecture was a bit better. So interesting assessment from the initial response. So what we'll do now is formulate a reply to their initial planning response and then enter the build phase. Okay, and just for transparency, I've also then asked Claude to help me formulate the responses to each of Codex and Claude Code. I've said here I want to accept each list of improvements they've suggested to allow their unique take on the project to shine through. I just need help replying to the questions they've asked at the end. I don't want the conditions to be too different, so I want the responses to be as close as possible to each other, and I don't really care much about the branding for the MVP. So I've made it clear here that, you know, we're trying to make the conditions as even and identical as possible, so keep that in mind with the responses. You know, we don't want to make it too different there and then skew and potentially affect the end result by the way that we then respond to that initial identical prompt. So the response to Codex, it's just answered the questions that it asked. And as I mentioned in the prompt I just sent here, I want to accept all of the improvements and suggestions that each are making to help reflect the end result as being, you know, unique to Codex and Claude Code. And then we can see the response to Claude Code here is then just responding to those questions in a similar way. So they're slightly different, but again, trying to be as identical and unbiased as possible in the way we respond. Before we jump back into Cursor, I've just made one tweak to the responses. Initially, Codex had the response as ending with proceed with implementation using your planned approach. I just want to put an extra step in here before we actually start implementation. So now we can see the response has been updated to say, before implementation, please create a todo.md file that outlines implementation order, key dependencies and sequencing, testing checkpoints, any setup steps needed. Once I review and approve the to-do, you can proceed with implementation. So it's identical for both responses, and this is just an extra step. They've obviously planned what they want to do for the build within our chat conversation. I want them to create a separate to-do file so that I can review exactly how it's going to implement and build the app, and then once we review that and approve, we can enter implementation mode. So I'll copy paste these responses over the cursor now, and we'll see what the to-do files look like on both Codex and Claude Code. Okay, so we're back in Cursor here. I've copy pasted the prompts. I'm going to hit enter on both. So as you can see, they've started work now. Again, GPT-5 Codex has completed the task a lot quicker than Claude Code. If we flick over here, we can see that because we're in planning mode, it can't actually create the file. It's created it here in the chat conversation, but when we flick to agent mode, it will be able to create the to-do file. So what I might do is flick over to agent mode and say create this to-do file in the project directory. So again, if you want that guardrail of not building anything yet, that's when you would use planning mode. Now that we actually want it to create a file, we need to flick over to agent mode, so we'll let it do that. We can see here on the Claude Code side, it wants to write the file, so we'll just say yes to that. We'll allow it to write the to-do file. Back on the left on the Codex side, we can see it has finished creating the file. So if we go now to our directory here, we can see that file. What I might do now is remove the split screen so that we have a better view of the full to-do file. We can see here on the Claude Code side, it's also created that file. So I'll set up this window so we've got a bit more room and we can review both to-do files a bit closer. Okay, so first of all, we're looking here at Codex's to-do file. We can see here it's got an implementation order, project scaffolding updates as number 1, state and utility foundations number 2, hooks and data flow number 3, UI components number 4, app entry number 5, and polish number 6. And it's got the other information we requested, a pretty basic and short and sharp to-do file. We'll now jump over and have a look at what Claude Code's done. We can see here Claude Code has provided a much more detailed to-do file. It's got it in a checklist style as well, so it's got phase 1 foundation and setup and the steps required for that phase, phase 2 section generators, phase 3 core components, phase 4 page and layout, phase 5 features and polish, phase 6 testing and refinement, key dependencies. It's got some other information here for external dependencies, testing checkpoints. A lot more detail here about the checkpoints than what Codex provided. It's got setup steps as well. File creation order as well, it's outlined. Design tokens. Known risks and mitigations, estimated timeline, success criteria. So a lot more detail in the Claude Code to-do file. I won't make any changes to these to-do files. They've both executed the task, so we'll just allow it to work from that to-do file now, and we'll see what the end result is. So I'll give the next prompt to each, which will be now implement from the to-do file, and we'll see how the app looks when it's built. Okay, so we've started the implementation phase. I've given approval for both Claude Code and Codex to start work on the implementation. We can see here I've changed the mode to edit automatically from ask for edit approval. It is still asking me to allow bash commands though on the Claude Code side, so I'll need to watch this and just approve any commands it wants to make, but I'm not jumping in and checking or reviewing anything as we go. I'm just going to allow it to fully complete the implementation phase, and we can then review what it's built as the MVP. As for Codex, we've switched over to agent full access mode, so this should allow Codex to work autonomously without needing to ask for permission to run any commands or edit or create any files. As you can see here in its working process that we can see, it has run some commands, npm install React Markdown, for example. Here we can see it's run. So in this agent full access mode, it's just going to go ahead and implement everything. So we'll see how that goes, but a bit more autonomous in the fact that we don't need to approve any commands like we needed to on the Claude Code side. There might be a setting I'm missing on Claude Code that allows you to automate that, but for now we've got Codex working here, and in the other window we've got Claude Code working as well. Okay, we're back in split screen mode here, just as an update on how the process is going. I've got the timer going, so I'll be able to see exactly how long each response takes. We can see on the right hand side it looks like Claude Code's making progress a bit quicker. It's already up to phase 5. It's just asked me to approve a bash command. That's the first time in about 5 minutes it's asked for approval for a command. So it's obviously been working and writing code without asking for permission. It's only commands to run that it's asking for permission. On the left hand side we can see the progress that Codex is making. It's completed 3 out of 6 tasks, so it's probably up to that phase 4 stage, so slightly behind where Claude Code is, but still making good progress. Because I'm in agent full access mode, as mentioned, it hasn't asked me for permission to approve anything yet, so that's just working on its own in its own time without needing to ask for me to approve anything, which is really handy. So both Codex and Claude have finished the implementation phase. Claude took 13 minutes and 38 seconds to fully implement the app. Codex took 18 minutes and 25 seconds for the build phase, so about 5 minutes extra for Codex, which is not too bad, but a little bit longer than Claude. We can see here that Codex has provided a brief summary of what's been implemented and then has suggested running npm run dev to test. Similar, Claude Code's provided a bit more detail in terms of the implementation summary. It's provided that we've now got a fully functional web app. It's outlined the architecture and then also recommended npm run dev for testing. So we'll launch both apps in dev mode and we'll see which one works best and looks the best. Okay, so stage 1 of our review, let's just review the actual UI that's been built. So this is the Codex version that we're looking at here. We can see PRD Generator project brief at the top. On the right hand side we've got generate PRD product. I'm not too sure what that's meant to signify, but we might see once we fill out the form what it does. We've then got the preview box here, so you can see here, fill out the form and click generate PRD to preview your document here. So there's a section where our PRD will appear, and then we've got options here to either download in markdown format or copy to clipboard. We've then got our form here on the left hand side that we need to fill out, so product project name, project description. We can see here it's also got that grey text to give us some instructions on how to fill out the form. So this says describe what you are building in 2 to 4 sentences, problem statements, what pain points does this solve, target audience. We've then got key features. It looks like we can add multiple features, so we can see here we've got a box for each feature where we can outline the feature title, a description for the feature, and then priority. So we've got the text here we can't see unless we move our mouse over it. That's probably something we would fix. Priority 0 is launch critical, P1 is high impact, P2 nice to have. And then we've got optional context here, which is a section we can add success metrics, preferred tech stack, timeline and phases, and risks and assumptions. So that's optional, we don't need to fill that out, but if we do want to include that in our prompt, we can. And then we've got our generate PRD button at the bottom and an instruction there, fill in the required fields and add at least one feature to enable generation. So that's a look at the UI that Codex has built. Again, it's powered on the back end by the prompts that we provided through the template system. So here's an app that we can now use to generate a PRD. So as I mentioned, the first review here we're doing is just a visual UI review. We'll test it shortly, but first I'll jump over to the Claude version and we'll see how the UI compares on the one that Claude's built. Okay, so here we are on the version that Claude has built. We can see here a title at the top, Snapper AI PRD Generator, transform your ideas into professional PRDs. On the left hand side we've got the form that we need to fill out. On the right hand side we've got a big box here where our PRD will appear. And then instructions, clear instructions here again, fill out the form and click generate PRD, and that's where we will see it. We then got required information, so product project name, product description, again very similar to how Codex has built it, and again it's probably followed that initial detailed prompt that we provided, and it's very similar. You can see we can also add key features. It's also got the priority scale here that we can choose if it's a must have, should have, or nice to have, a title and a description. We've then got optional fields, so again the same as Codex, success metrics, technical stack, timeline, risks and assumptions. So again, it has followed that outline that we've created, and then the generate PRD button at the bottom. So pretty similar in terms of the form and how it's built, which again, it's followed the instructions that we provided. It's probably a bit subjective in terms of which design you prefer. It's probably up to you. I think the Claude Code version is very clean. We can see clearly separated form on the left hand side and a really nice big canvas here on the right hand side for where our PRD will appear. Codex version still equally is a pretty good UI. Can't really fault this either. Okay, so we've reviewed the UI for both. Now it's time to test the functionality. The project name that the example has populated is an AI-powered code review tool. It's then got a project description, a problem statement, target audience. It's listed 4 key features, so a nice to have, a high impact, and 2 launch critical. We can then see if we open up optional context, it's also filled that out, so it's added some success metrics, preferred tech stack, and risks and assumptions. We'll click generate PRD now and see what happens. Okay, so we can see there's a little box that pops up here and says PRD generated successfully. We can see here now that it makes sense what this box was at the top. It's now replaced product with the title of our project, which is AI powered code review tool, and then it's got the date here, so it's also included the date when we've created it. And now we've got preview mode here where we can see the full PRD. It's also got this inline quote here that says generated on the date by Snapper AI template wizard, and if we scroll down we can see we've now got our full PRD. It's followed the structures and the guidelines from our fully streamlined this process into a working app rather than a copy-paste template workflow. It looks really good here, a lot of detail. It was a little bit stuck on scroll there, but that's not too bad. And then if we flick over to Markdown, we've also got a Markdown version. So if you want to copy-paste that or upload it directly to your project, you can. You can click the copy button to copy to clipboard, or you can click the download button to download the file. So it looks great, and yeah, it works. So that's pretty cool to see that Codex has successfully built this app based off a couple of prompts and about 18 minutes of building. So that's the Codex version. We'll now jump over and test the Claude version. Okay, so now we're on the Claude version here. If we click load example, we'll see the same preview comes up. So it looks like the AI powered code review tool as the load example it must have been mentioned in the initial prompt we provided, because it would be too much of a coincidence, I think, that they would both use that as the project name. We can see here though the values in the description and statement are different. So if we flick back, we can see a little bit more brief in the Codex version, whereas there's a bit more detail here in the load example for Claude. We can see it's the same tool that it wants to build though, an intelligent code review assistant that automatically analyzes pull requests, identifies potential bugs, suggests improvements, and enforces coding standards. More detail here on the problem statement. It's got target audience. It has listed a few extra features as well. I think from memory, we'll flick back over quickly. Codex had 4. We can see here Claude's version has listed 6 features. I like the way that Claude has designed the UI here where the priority scale is coloured, so we can clearly distinguish between P0, P1 and P2. I think that's a good feature. Interesting to see that it's gone into a bit more detail as well in terms of having 6 features here as opposed to the 4 on the Codex side. We open up optional fields. We've also then got some more information here that it's pre-filled for the success metrics, the stack, timeline and risks. So very similar, but yeah, a bit more detail has been provided here on the Claude Code side. We'll click generate PRD now. We can see here it has populated the PRD, but the preview mode isn't great. It's a bit hard to read. Obviously the if we flick back over here, it was a lot easier to read in preview mode on Codex. This looks really good, the way the tables are outlined and formatted, whereas the formatting doesn't look great at all here for the preview mode on Claude side. So you'd have to give a point there to Codex for the UI. For the actual PRD itself, it looks a lot more detailed here in terms of the features. I didn't have a strong look through the Codex version though, so you'd probably have to review in a bit more detail in order to compare which version is actually better in terms of the PRD output. If I flick over to Markdown, that's a bit easier to read, but some of that text is cut off. We need to scroll across. We've got the same copy to clipboard action, which doesn't bring up a box to say that it's been copied. It just changes to copied there. The download button also works. If we scroll down, there's no scroll bar. There is a scroll bar, sorry. It's at the bottom, but it's not sticky, so a bit harder to scroll across up the top. So there's a look at the Claude one. Again, I think it's interesting to compare here that the actual preview mode UI is probably better on the Codex side. There's a lot more detail in the load example. The load example is not critical though, because obviously as a user you'll be entering your own information, so you'd almost have to give this point to Codex. So if we flick back to Codex, we can see this preview mode is just a lot better. So for a one-shot to build this, off one plan and one prompt, this is a really impressive result on the Codex side. So as mentioned, it took a bit longer to actually perform the implementation phase, but I'm really impressed with this result here from Codex. So yeah, big tick for Codex. If we flick back to Claude Code, again, impressive UI, and again from a one-shot, pretty good. Impressive again, this result, but the issue with the preview mode is probably the big differentiator between these two versions. So you'd have to say that based on that, Codex probably wins. I do like some of the features that Claude Code has included here, but just another sort of bug I guess I'm seeing here is that I can't actually scroll on this left hand side. So as you can see, the scroll's locked on that right hand side. So if I just want to, I've got to scroll right to the bottom for that to then activate the scroll on the left. I do like the coloured priority scale here. That's a good feature. If we go back here though, we can see that the scroll here is a lot better. That functionality is locked to each of the panels here. So if I want to scroll down the left hand side, I can. If I want to scroll down on the preview, I can. So another tick there in terms of functionality to Codex. So let's also quickly review the mobile view for each of the builds. So as you'll recall, the desktop and mobile views and optimizations were part of that initial brief. So let's have a quick look to see how they both did in that regard. So we can see here this is the Codex version of the build. We've got the form at the top here, very similar to the desktop view. If we scroll down, the width looks good. We can see the features, just like the desktop version. This is the complete form. If we click Generate PRD, that's then going to generate the PRD in this bottom screen. So that right side panel is now underneath for mobile view. If we scroll down, we can see most of the text. There is a scroll bar here, so you can scroll across, which it's just disappearing as I scroll. So that might need a little bit of optimization. You can see that it is possible to scroll across, but most of the text is visible anyway, so it's only these sort of tables here where the text is a bit cut off, and that scroll bar is a bit tricky. So that's probably one thing you would look at if you were to make some changes. And then the rest of the app works the same, where you've got the copy button and the download button. So looks pretty good in mobile view. That scroll issue is something you could probably manage a bit better if you're actually on mobile. But apart from that, that looks good. If we now switch over to the Claude version, we can see immediately that there's an issue with the width. So the form extends past the width of the mobile, and you can see here that it's just difficult to sort of navigate and understand how the actual form works. There's an issue as well with the form extending. Again, I'm having issues with the scroll bar. If I can just try to get the mouse to scroll across, we can see that that width issue is not great again for the actual form itself. And if we scroll down and click Generate PRD, we're going to see the same issue with the width and the UI as well, with the way that the PRD is formatted. So again, that's another really big tick here for Codex. This Claude version needs a lot of work in terms of fixing this mobile version. The width issue doesn't just apply to the PRD, it actually is present for the form itself as well. As you can see here, those field boxes, text boxes are cut off. If we go back to the Codex version, we can see that the form actually looks really good. It fits within the width of the mobile version, so it's a lot better than the Claude version. So if you combine that with the other issues we've talked about, I think it's clear that Codex is the winner here. Yeah, to summarize, I would say that Codex wins. There are only minor things, I guess, but the fact that there are two clear issues that we found with the Claude one, and those issues are not present on Codex, you'd have to give the tick to Codex. So that scroll functionality issue and the UI preview mode for the PRD. Excellent performance by Codex, and those issues are present with Claude Code. So that sums up the video. I hope you enjoyed. That was a look at Codex versus Claude Code. If you are building with a Next.js TypeScript project and you're looking at building apps, hopefully this is a good idea of not only the process involved in how you can build apps like this, but also the differences between Codex and Claude Code, and which one you choose for your project build. Hopefully this video helps make that decision. So thanks for watching. Interested to know what apps you try to build with both Codex and Claude Code, and what your experience has been with using both of these models. So if you do have anything to share, let me know in the comments below. This is just one example, so it's possible that there are other differences and advantages and disadvantages of these models. So yeah, if you have anything to share, please feel free to do so in the comments. Thanks.